Now we need to open Photoshop. So if you have Photoshop, if you have the icon down here on your dock somewhere, you can go ahead and click it. It's a blue box with the letters PS on it. If you don't have Photoshop down here, you can always search for it. So at the very top of your monitor, you can see this little spyglass up here. Click that and I can start typing in Photoshop and it gives me the top hits, and I can click that and open Photoshop. Now I am working in a slightly different version of Photoshop than you guys have at school because I'm making this video at home, but it really shouldn't affect us too much. But there may be a couple of little differences, and we'll figure out how to work around them. So now that I'm in Photoshop, I need to open the file that I just downloaded. So if you're not used to Macs, this is one difference between a Mac and a PC. When I drag the Photoshop window around on my screen, this bar at the top, this doesn't change. Okay, this is attached to the top of the monitor, and then this window may move around. So if you're trying to find File or Edit or Help or any of the tools up here at the top, they're at the top of the monitor. They're not at the top of the window. So we want to open the file we just downloaded, so I'm going to click File, Open. And then I'm going to scroll down and find my Paintbrush Practice Worksheet PDF. Double click that. And it should open. Okay? So this is what you're going to practice on today while you're working with Photoshop. The first thing we need to do is make a new layer that you're going to paint on. Photoshop works with layers, and layers, if you're not familiar with them, are they're like clear pieces of acetate or clear plastic. They all kind of lay on top of each other to create different layers. So if your layers panel isn't open, you can go to Window and then click Layers, and it should open. I'll show you, because mine closed when I clicked that. So I'm going to click Layers, and there's my Layers panel, and it says Paintbrush Practice, and it has a little lock symbol. You don't need to mess with this. Don't touch this. But down here at the bottom, you see this little icon that looks like a piece of folded paper, and I'm going to click that, and that's for a new layer. So then I have layer 1, and it's on top of my Paintbrush Practice layer, which is exactly how I want it. So now we can start practicing with the paintbrush. So this is your tools panel on the side. These are all the tools in Photoshop. And this one is the paintbrush. Now, some people get confused with this guy down here that has this swirly arrow behind it. This is the history brush, and this is different. Don't worry about that. Just stick to the regular old paintbrush. And when you start painting, you can, this is just the default paintbrush, so whatever your paintbrush comes up as, I want you to practice in here painting. Okay? Just using the mouse. We'll get into the tablets later in the year, or probably tomorrow. And just practice painting. Okay? Now, on the next section, we want to use a hard-edged paintbrush. So up here at the top, this is my, these are sort of my paintbrush controls, and I can control the size of the paintbrush and what's called the hardness. So if I bring the size up, it might be easier to see this. If I bring the size up, you can see how my paintbrush, it's very sort of fuzzy on the outside. Okay, it looks like maybe an airbrush or some spray paint. And if you want to change that, the way you do it is by adjusting the hardness. So if I take the hardness up to 100%, and I'm going to do this in my hard edge paintbrush, you can see how it's different. Okay, it's much more like maybe like a marker. Okay, so that's how you adjust the hardness, how fluffy or hard that edge is. The other thing I want you to practice is how to make the brush larger and smaller. So you can click here and you can change the size going up and down. So this is totally one way to do it. So I can make a small line, or I can make a large line. Okay. If you make a mistake and you want to erase, this is the eraser. It kind of looks like one of those pink Pink erasers you probably had in elementary school, and you can erase things. This eraser set on something weird, but it doesn't matter. So that's how you erase. If you make a mistake, you can go ahead and erase. Okay. But anyway, back to size. You can use the slider. That's fine. But it can get a little annoying because what you're doing when you're using the slider is you have to slide it over and then move it over here and see how big the brush is. You have to keep sort of guessing and testing until you find the right size, and that can be a little annoying, and it also is annoying to have to move back and forth on your paper or on your canvas. So the easier way to do it is to use a shortcut. So on your keyboard there are the brackets keys. They're next to the letter P, and you can use the brackets to make the brush larger or to make the brush smaller. So in this section I want you to practice making the brush larger and smaller. Okay, so I'm down to a 6 point. You can go teeny tiny. So sort of play around with size in this one. Okay. Okay, next section is to change the color. So if you want to change the color you're working with, again, in Photoshop there's many ways to do everything, but one way to do it is to just click this box down here and you get your color picker. And I could make this like a bright red if I wanted to, or I can go over here to get white, or I can go here to get black. Okay, I can go somewhere in the middle and get kind of a brown color. And then I can use this bar here to slide through the different colors. So maybe this time I'm going to paint with blue. Okay, so just show me that you know how to change the color in this section. I'm not interested in how the brush looks. Just show me how to change the color. Okay. Next thing, this is opacity. Now, what opacity means is how see-through or how solid a color looks. So this is my opacity slider. Okay, right here it says opacity, and right now it's at 100%. So it's completely solid. Okay, nothing is showing through my my color. If I slide this down to 50, and you can always type in the number you want if you have a specific number you want. Okay, and now you can see that my color is more see-through, and when I layer the sections on top of each other they become more solid or more see-through. So that's opacity. Okay, opacity, 100% opaque means it's very solid, and 50% opaque would mean it's halfway see-through. And then you can, if you wanted to, you can take this down to, if I put it down at 1, I can't even see it. When I click, I am drawing right now. When I click, you can't even see it. Okay? So in the future, if you're having trouble, like you're painting but it's not showing up, it might be your opacity. All right? I'm going to reset this back to 100. And I'm going to go down here to my specialty paintbrush section. Oops, I made a mistake. I'll just erase that. Okay. Next I want you to try choosing a different paintbrush. There's lots and lots and lots and lots of different paintbrushes in Photoshop. Right now I've just been kind of using a standard default one. But if I click this panel up here that I showed you earlier for the size and the hardness, these are all different brushes that you can use. Okay, so I want you to try to use one of the specialty brushes. Some of them are airbrush, some of them look like paintbrushes. Okay, so that's one style of brush. Oops, one panel. Some of them are like shapes, so you could try painting with the leaf if you want. Notice how that's changing color in addition to painting with that leaf shape. Let me erase that again. And the eraser works just like a paintbrush. So the size brackets trick works. You can just treat it just like a paintbrush, except that it's erasing. Maybe you could try painting with the star. So try painting with some of the different brushes and see what they do, and try the specialty brushes. And you can try a different color down here if you'd like as well. So that's what I want you to do. I want you to go through and practice with all of these brushes and some of these settings. And then when you're all done, we're going to go to File, Save As. I don't want you to save on top of my file or on top of the blank file. I want you to go to File, Save As. And yours might look like this, okay? You're going to want to hit this arrow right here to drop it down so that you can see more things. For today, just save this on the desktop. Since I'm not there, we've been having some issues with people getting on the server. I don't want you to get confused by trying to get on the student server. So just save it on the desktop for now. And then you're going to call this, you can leave Paintbrush Practice Worksheet just as it is, and then put your name, last name first in front of it. So I'm going to write McFarland Molly, and then a space, and then Paintbrush Practice Worksheet. And I'm just going to save it on the desktop for now. Okay, if it gives you any warnings, don't worry about it. Just keep it as is, and you're good to go. Okay. So once you've practiced this, if you want to continue to play with the brushes on a new sheet, you can go up here to the top of the monitor and click File, New. If you set this to US paper, that's probably a good size just for playing around. And if you want to play around with the different brushes, feel free. There's some pretty cool ones that you can play with. And we will see you next time. Ooh, look at the grass. Okay, we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.